Adam watched his students. It was a fortunate event that Cu had arrived. He offered such a legendary opponent for them. Each in turn faced his spear, and was beaten back. When they fought at range, he used spells. Always, the legendary warrior had a counter for them. Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Today we meet Cu Chulainn, a warrior who is reminiscent of modern superheroes. He comes from Celtic mythology, from the Ulster cycle. He is a demigod, and there was a bit of disagreement on his origin. His mother, Diechtine, whose father was the king of Ulster, Concal Magnessa. Yeah, a strange pronunciation, and I'm probably butchering it. Okay, that is a really hard name to say, so I'll go with the Anglicization, Conchubar. She accompanied her father and his men on a hunt for some magical birds in winter. As a snowstorm strikes, they ask to take refuge within a house. That night, the hostess' wife gives birth at the same time as the mayor births twin colts. In the morning, the house and the residents are all gone, except for the baby boy and the colts. Diechtine then takes the child, but he dies shortly thereafter. Ouch. But don't worry, the god Lug, member of the Tuatha De Danann, then came and told her that he had taken his child's soul and placed it in her womb, and was to name the child Setanta. And we get another case of immaculate conception. Oh, but there was an issue. She was engaged to Sualtam Mac Ruik, and this led Diechtine to commit an abortion, though she would marry and have a son named Setanta. Thus, he is 3 times conceived, died twice, and birthed twice, as the story goes. In other versions, Diechtine was the woman that gave birth in the house and then vanished. Afterwards, the nobles of Ulster argued about who would raise the child and agreed to share responsibility. In the end, he was raised in the house of Conchubar, in most versions. His first major adventure began when he was a child. There was a thing called the Boy Troop, basically proto-Boy Scouts, and Setanta, who was about 7 at the time, wanted to join and headed off on his own, but he didn't know the proper protocols and introductions when he arrived. Seeing the Boy Troop on the game field playing a game called hurling, he rushed down to join them. And since the boys didn't know him, and he gave no introduction, a fight broke out, many on one. Well, Setanta would have gotten his butt whooped if he didn't have a rather unique power. Riastrad. It roughly translates as warp spasm. It discolors Cu's skin and twists his face and body. One eye closes to a needle's width, while the other grows to the size of a bowl. He grows in size, and his hair stands on end, with what looks like embers glowing at each end. It is said that if he would stand under an apple tree, when the apples fell, every one of them would be skewered by his hairs. During this time, he is stronger and faster than ever before. He is Rage, the perfect berserker. Basically, this is the Hulk going Super Saiyan. So, brawly? Needless to say, little Setanta beat up the whole Boy Troop. And if Lord Conchubar had not stepped in to resolve the situation, some of the boys might have died. After a bit of talking and a lot of understanding, the Boy Troop agreed to take Setanta under their protection. But not 10 minutes later, he was chasing them around, demanding that they place themselves under his protection. Yeah, already very arrogant. One night, while he was out playing, the blacksmith Cu Chulainn invited Conchubar to his house for dinner. Seeing Setanta playing, he tells the boy to come to the feast after the game, and Conchubar got distracted on his way to the house, musing his own thoughts. When he got to the feast, Chulainn asked if any more were coming, but Conchubar had forgotten about the boy, and Chulainn released his guard dog to protect the property. When Setanta arrived, the dog attacked, and he was forced to kill it, with everything from shoving a hurling ball down its throat to kicking it into a standing stone. Regardless, it was noisy, and everyone left the feast to see what was causing it. Chulainn was livid, but the boy offered to raise him a new guard dog, and promised to guard Chulainn's house until the dog is old enough. Then the druid Cathbar would give the boy a new name, Cu Chulainn, or Chulainn's Hound. Now, this druid shows up again. He gives a prophecy to his students that if anyone would take up arms on this day, that they would have everlasting fame, but a short life. Young Cu didn't wait about to hear that last part, and rushed away to find Cu Chulainn and demand a weapon. But every weapon he tried would be destroyed by his incredible strength. Finally, Cu Chulainn would give up his own weapons to the child, and he would take his chariot as well, and off he went. Nearby lived Natan Sin, whose sons bragged that they had killed more men of Ulster than still remained alive. Cu would slay 3 of them, but would succumb to his warped spasms. As he returned home, still in his frenzied state, the people were terrified and came up with a plan. The women advanced first, bare-chested, and that would put the young boy off enough that the men of Ulster were able to wrestle the 7-year-old boy into a barrel of cold water, which instantly turned to steam due to his body heat. Well, they dumped another barrel of water onto him, which instantly boiled, and he escaped from their grasp, only to be grabbed again and shoved into a 3rd barrel. This one only got warm. Let that sink in. His body was so hot that it took 3 barrels of water to cool him down. Now, a barrel isn't a completely consistent size, 100 to 1,000 liters at times. Regardless, that is several times more water than the volume for a 7-year-old boy. And it took multiple skilled warriors to get him into a barrel while he was distracted and tired. As he matured, a new problem arose. Cu was very attractive, and they feared that he would steal their wives and ruin their daughters, so to speak. So they seek to find him a wife, but in his arrogance, he would only accept the hand of Emmer, daughter of Feargal Monarch. And her father doesn't like Cu, and says that he should go study under Scathach. She was a master warrior. She was said to live on the Isle of Skye, at a place called Dún Scaith, or the Fortress of Shadows. There were 3 main events here. The first is he would make a lifelong friend in Ferdiad. But the more complicated is, Scathach had a daughter, Uthach, who was already involved with another man, Culchar Cribi. Now Cu accidentally breaks 2 of the young lady's fingers, and she cries out. Her boyfriend comes running and sees the situation, and he challenges Cu despite Uthach's protests. And it ends very badly for him. Now his teacher and her daughter are mad, but does allow Cu to take her daughter's hand in time. The last event involves Scathach's family. You see, her twin sister Aif was also her fierce rival. Knowing that she was coming, she drugged Cu with a sleeping potion meant to last a full day, but only lasted a single hour before he joined the battle. Aif sprang from a chariot to fight, and Cu flat out lied to her, saying that her prized horses and chariot were about to go over a cliff. She looked away for a moment, and he took her down. With a sword at her throat, he agreed to spare her on 2 conditions. First, call off her forces, and the second is to sleep with him. Yeah, he's a huge player. Now Aif would eventually give birth to his son, Connla, or Connor, and we'll get back to him in a few years. After all of his training, Cu would learn the arts of war, poetry, and wisdom, but amongst his lessons was that of runes, and through them, magic. Yeah, this is what you get if you cross a barbarian and a wizard. What do you think? A weird combination to be sure. He also received a rather cruel spear, Gaibulg. It was made from the spine of a sea monster, and had to be thrown with his foot. But when it pierced his foe, it would branch out. Many compare it to the budding of a rose bush. In total, it stabbed his foe 30 times in a single strike. Now, unfortunately, the only way to remove it was to cut it out. With all of that, he returned for Emmer. But her father still didn't want him to marry his daughter. A fight broke out. 24 of the king's men are slain, and Feargal Monarch is slain. A really bad beginning to a marriage. Oh, he also tried to marry his daughter off in the meantime to Cu's foster brother. But he was the bros before hoes guy. But there was one more obstacle. In ancient times, there is something called the Right of Firsts. This goes all the way back to Gilgamesh, and it allowed the king to get the first night with a new bride. And it was Cu Chulainn who had the right to sleep with Emmer before Cu did. Oh, but could you imagine what Cu would do if another man touched his bride? Yeah, Cu Chulainn didn't want that, but couldn't appear as weak. So the druid Cathbar agreed that he would prevent anything from happening by sleeping between them. With all of that done, Cu could take his wife. One day, an 8-year-old boy arrived in Ulster who was told not to reveal his name by his mother. He was seen as an invader and took up many challengers, and eventually took on Cu, but falls to him. Only with his last breath did the boy reveal his name as Conla, Cu's son. He is stricken with grief. Now Cu isn't a completely horrible womanizer. He rejects a couple, one because she was ugly, another was a Scandinavian princess he saved in his training, who came to Ireland in the form of a swan, and he struck her with a sling, and then saved her life by sucking the sling stone from her body. But since he tasted her blood, he couldn't marry her, and she married one of his friends. And then there was the Morrigan, the Celtic goddess of death and war. She would later become an issue for him. In future battles, she takes the form of animals to plague him, but he defeats her in turn. Though they would make up in time. She would take the form of an old woman milking a cow. She would offer him 3 drinks, and he would bless and heal her wounds. He would fight in multiple battles, including those against Queen Maeve. Ulster had a legendary brown bowl that she wanted, and she sent an army to take it. The first time, Cu and the men of Ulster beat them back. With the second, a curse is laid upon the men, and they suffer labor pains. While Cu keeps fighting, but arranges a rather unique challenge. The invading army may only march forward, while Cu is involved in single combat against a champion, and slows their march forward to a crawl. But in time, he is injured and collapses. While he is out, his old allies, the boy troop, attacks and is slaughtered. This sets forth Cu's most intense warp spasm, and the army is slaughtered in an instant. Now Cu was bound by what are called giyas, or taboos. These made conditions that he had to live by. 2 are important. The first is, he must accept any gift given to him by a woman. And the second is he cannot eat dog meat. So what happens when a woman offers him dog meat? Some say that this is the Morrigan in disguise. So he was trapped in a place where he had to break a giyas, and left him weak in the next battle. And Maeve had found new allies this time, including Cu's foster brother. And Cu is slain. His warp spasm reaches its limit, but he refuses to fall. Cu ties himself to a standing stone. In time he goes still, but his enemies are too scared to approach. Not until a raven landed on Cu's shoulder would one of his enemies muster the courage to cut off Cu's head. A burst of light ushered forth and took his foe's arm. That is a lot to say the least. He lived a complicated and exciting life, though his frequent affairs and constant relations posed many problems for him. He is caught between chaos and control. He mastered many skills and abilities in both battle and magic. Truly, his arsenal is impressive to say the least. It is funny that his warp spasms is reminiscent of the powers of modern heroes. Did they draw inspiration from him, or is it just coincidence? It looks like when they say that there are no new ideas in literature, they may be right. All of his students had their turn, and all failed. Now Adam stepped into the ring. He already knew the outcome. After every fight, he had made notes of what Cu had done, and he couldn't win. He was sure. While their match lasted longer than a student's, it still ended with Adam on his back, smiling. Cu Chulainn is an impressive addition to the list of demigods, which fills the rank of mythology. Though his abilities really are interesting to say the least. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please return next time for What Would a World of Monsters Really Mean and Change? Until then, I'll see you on the roads.